Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome to the tranquil and relaxing comic book vault. It's time for new acquisitions. This week I've got 11 more books for you, and this was a really interesting week. This was kind of a week of tribute issues, a lot of anniversary and tribute stuff going on, and so we'll get into that in just a moment. Today I am foregoing the usual green screen shooting in favor of being outside, because it's gorgeous here in Kansas City this week, and I really wanted to come out here and experience the nice weather and share it with you fine viewers. And so this week, regardless of sun in our face and a little bit of heat, we're going to enjoy a Capri Sun together, and we're going to talk about this week's comic book. So I want to say thanks, as always, to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping me out with the show. And if you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Elite Comics. They do a lot for us. We sure appreciate them, and they're a really fantastic store. So check them out. At the end of the show, we're going to have Superhero Enthusiast, as always, talking about all of his pulls that I didn't happen to read this week, so look forward to that. And without further ado, let's jump straight into it with DC stuff. And this week we're going to begin with the crazy weekly gigantor Batman Eternal #1. This is by lots of folks. Scott Snyder is overseeing this, and it's difficult to tell just how much writing he's actually doing. He's credited here for story and script along with James Tynion IV. So he, according to this anyway, has something to do with scripting on this. I rather imagine that he's probably mostly just overseeing this thing, but there is a lot of Snyder's flavor in this. So if you're not sure about this, can't decide if you want to jump onto it, but you really like Snyder, or you really don't care for Snyder, that might be something to keep in mind, is that it definitely is very much a Snyder sort of book. Art here is by Jason Fabok, and there's consulting writer credits by Ray Fox, John Layman, and Tim Seeley. I can only assume that that means here are the folks that all sat in a room together and plotted this whole thing out from start to finish, and their names are on it because they have a lot of influence in where this ends up going. So, this is very, very much a setup issue. Difficult to tell what this book is going to be about overall. It's somewhat plotty, decent, kind of traditional Batman atmosphere. It gives you this very kind of gritty, street level thing, a lot of dynamic action, a lot of, like I said, it's it's a gritty sort of book. It's crime drama, and what we have here is Batman having to go up against Professor Pig once again. He makes an amusing quip about wanting to say something about blowing your house down, which I thought was kind of fun. And Gordon is going up against him at first. He's waiting for Batman to show up, and Batman finally does, and then weirdness ensues. Jim Gordon gets presented with a suspect that seems to be involved in all of this, who's there's something involving a railway train, and Jim Gordon thinks that this guy has pulled a gun on him, and he and Jim, in trying to disarm him, and in self-defense, he shoots this guy, and or thinks that he shoots him, but the bullet goes straight through him, and then horrible things happen. And I don't feel like I'm giving too much away about this. I've seen this in a lot of advertising and stuff for this book. Again, this is just kind of the premise of it, so I don't know how to talk about this without giving stuff away. But anyway, basically the beginning of this, conceptually, is Jim Gordon accidentally did something that that led to the death of lots of people, and he gets arrested in this, and that's kind of what starts it all. And the guy that turned a gun on him apparently wasn't actually holding a gun at all, and so there's a mystery built up about that, and what exactly is happening there. So it's a decent setup issue. I'm certainly interested to keep reading. It feels so far like kind of a more low-level Batman book, but of course it's going to get bigger and bigger and more epic because of the way it opens. And it's another one of those non-linear jump into the future for a page just to grip you and get you into it and hook you, which is a gimmick I'm getting a little bit sick of. But nevertheless, it's interesting, and it's Batman tied up on the bat signal with a bat very gruesomely chiseled into his chest, and what an image, and that I'm kind of glad I got it just for that image. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, certainly, and this is, of course, setting up this, as far as I can tell, this kind of post-apocalyptic thing, because we saw some of this future in a recent Batman issue that introduced Bluebird and brought back Spoiler and stuff like that. It's interesting that at the end of this, there's a letter about this new book, and it says something along the lines of, well, I guess this is probably the thing that DC's putting in all their books right now, but it has this quip that's like, just because characters are new doesn't mean that you haven't seen them before, because this is the introduction of some of these characters to the DC universe, and it looks like Batman Eternal, part of the point of it is to do that. How do I feel about the weekly thing? I kind of wish that we could do what we did in the 90s with Batman and with Superman and a lot of DC stuff, where if you have multiple Bat books, you can tell a story like this through those books, so that if people happen to already be buying all the Bat books, they're getting that story and they don't have to gimmickly buy another thing. I really wish we could do that with this. At the same time, we would have to pretend like we don't have different flavors of Batman in all these different books in order to do it. So that would certainly, at this point, be a lot harder, because as I keep saying, I feel like Batman's kind of a different person in these different books. So I don't know that it's really all that feasible now, but I kind of wish that that's the way we were doing it. We already have a lot of Batman going on right now. I don't know that this had to be a weekly thing. There's a lot of, we've got to keep doing more and more Batman because he sells, that kind of thing. So anyway, I plan to continue reviewing it for now, and anyway, I like where it started, so I'll keep on it. Next up, we've got Batgirl number 30. This is not Gail Simone. This seems to be a fill-in issue written by Margaret Bennett with art by Robert Gill. And this is wholly skippable if you're not reading Batgirl. Excuse me. This is wholly skippable if you are reading Batgirl. If you're not, it's one of those issues that is easy to jump on and read and understand what's going on. But it's not brilliant by any stretch of the imagination. It's just okay. Basically, there's this story, that this kind of ghost story, horror story that's told a lot by kids in Gotham. That's a very Bloody Mary-ish story, and it's about conjuring a monster through a door that you paint on the floor. And these kids do this kind of ritual just to kind of scare themselves. And the book is, and Batgirl talks about how much she likes horror movies and stuff, and the issue is mostly about why people like to scare themselves and the thrill of doing that, and paralleling that with being a superhero. So part of the reason that Barbara Gordon stays Batgirl is because of the thrill of it, and there's a little bit of talk of if that's too selfish and whether that's a good reason to do anything. And so what these kids end up doing is, of course, they accidentally create the monster. There's kind of a question as to why now, why not every other time that's ever happened. That's left somewhat up in the air. There's a little bit of an answer for it, and at the end, it kind of gives you the idea that eventually this monster is going to come back. The issue is a little bit overwritten for my taste. I feel like Margaret Bennett is putting just every word she can think of on the page in narration for Barbara Gordon, and I feel like a lot of it could be cut. I feel like a lot of it is really unnecessary and kind of intrusive. The story itself, I like the ideas in it, but again, I felt like they were kind of hit over my head too much, like with a 2x4. And it's a very simple idea, and that's nothing against the story. I just wish that that simplicity had been somewhat, I wish I could see that simplicity in the storytelling itself. So anyway, a lukewarm recommendation for me on Batgirl number 30. Next up, we move on to Superman Wonder Woman number 7. This is setting up Superman Doomed. Now, I am still a little bit perplexed as to whether or not the Superman Doomed thing is supposed to be a new New 52 retelling of Death of Superman, or if it's just the first big story we're doing with Doomsday. I guess we'll see. I have seen things online that seem to suggest that it's kind of Death of Superman again, but I'm a little bit skeptical about that because the whole reading list of it is like 4 issues, and so I don't think that they're actually killing Superman again. But maybe it's one of those things where they sort of kind of do, but it's just resolved a lot faster. Anyway, what I like about this is what I have continued liking about this book all the way through, the paralleling of Superman and Wonder Woman. What they inherently have in common in their mythologies, I think, is really interesting. I like all the talk about the sun god versus Superman being also sort of a sun god. I really like that. Oh yeah, okay, it is Apollo. Wow, I'm so rusty on my Greek. Anyway, so so there's this idea at the end of this that Wonder Woman, and this is kind of built from what we had last issue, Wonder Woman has taken the place of the God of War. And she and Superman have a conversation at the end of this where he's like, what does that mean now? You're the God of War. Are we even compatible anymore as superheroes working together, much less a couple? Like, what does it mean that you're the God of War? Does that mean you have to go out and make war? And she has this really interesting sort of spin on it, that she's not... she doesn't have to perpetuate war. She's the personification of war, meaning that whatever she is, that is what people are going, how people are going to perceive war. And so she has the capability to change its meaning a little bit, to change people's minds about when war should be used. And she says, maybe I can convince more people that it should be used as only a last resort. I really liked all that, the notion that she and Superman can kind of represent some of the same things while she is the God of War. I didn't really care for the opening of this because, once again, it's another one of those non-linear, we have to open showing the future kind of things, and I thought that it really undercut the finale from last issue, or the cliffhanger from last issue, where Superman and Wonder Woman set off a nuclear bomb, and then they look like they are completely decimated by this bomb. Superman, like seems to lose a lot of the skin on his face. He looks like a skeleton guy at the end of that, and it was quite a provocative image. And I found myself at the beginning of this going, oh wait, what happened to that? And then a couple pages later, we have Superman and Wonder Woman just kind of flying around talking about relationship stuff, and the aftermath of all of that. And yeah, I knew that, of course, they're you know, they're going to get over it. They're both essentially gods, but I wanted to see that happen before I saw them looking normal and fine again. So anyway, I didn't really care for the opening of that. Another thing that, but you know, all the relationship stuff continues, I think, to be done pretty sophisticatedly by Charles Soule. Another thing I kind of resisted, and I don't feel like this is giving too much away because this is the prelude to Superman Doomed. Doomsday does pop up at the end of this again briefly in order to set that up, and I think that would have been, because basically the idea is that when they get Zod back into the Phantom Zone, they release Doomsday again. So basically what happens is Doomsday shows up in the first issue of this to present to us the idea of the Phantom Zone again, and to set all of that up, and to show us that people are being released from the Phantom Zone. And so then Zod gets out later, because Zod gets out later and stuff, they get him put back in, and then in doing all of that, Doomsday gets out again. So he's now gotten out of the Phantom Zone twice. Wouldn't this have been more effective, and wouldn't I have been a lot more surprised by the reveal if this was the first time Doomsday got out? That's the way I wish they'd play this. They played this. Having said that, at the same time, part of the reason I got giddy about this book in the first place was that they were doing Doomsday again, and I liked how menacing he was. I liked how monstrous and huge he was and everything, and how hard it was for Superman and Wonder Woman to beat him. So part of what made me start reading this book in the first place was Doomsday. So bit of a catch-22 from my side of it, but for just normal people reading it that aren't as Death of Superman obsessed as I am, I think it would have been a more effective thing to just have Doomsday show up at the end of this story for the first time and let Superman have, Superman's never fought him before when that happens. But we'll see how it plays. Maybe we'll find that ultimately he needs that history. Okay, let's jump over to Marvel now, and we're going to begin with a towering, monstrous issue. This is Daredevil, number 1.50. 50? It's not 1.5, it's 1.50. I guess it's because it is Daredevil's 50th anniversary, and a lot of 50th anniversaries the last couple of years, and so this basically takes a lot of major writers and artists that have been really crucial to Daredevil in the last several years, the last few decades, and in the last couple decades anyway, and gives them their own story. So this is one of those kind of beefy, we've got some backup features kind of things, but what I like about it is that it's only got 3 stories in it, and the stories are very self-contained, and all 3 of them are magnificent. And I never see that with these thick kind of tribute issues, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit with another one. This one, I really like how it doesn't really do a lot for present day stuff. It's mostly set in the future, but the stories themselves, all 3 of them, I found really touching. Like not just in a I really like Daredevil and I'm celebrating Daredevil kind of way, but I mean like just solid stories in their own right that made me feel something, and I really appreciated that. So the first story is by Mark Waid and Javier Rodriguez, and by the way, I'm really liking this the way that we're crediting people a lot right now in Marvel, where we take, I don't know if I've seen it in DC, I think I've seen it mostly in Marvel, where we take the writer and the artist, and we don't give a writer credit and artist credit, we say storytellers. Love that. That's the Marvel method, right? That the artist is credited as much for story as the writer is, because the writer provides the dialogue, the artist provides the art, and between those 2 things, you get the story, and it's a collaborative thing. So I really like that. Anyway, what they're doing with this is they're setting it in the future where Matt Murdock has a son. And Matt Murdock is afraid that he has become his father, all the while trying not to, because his father, Jack Murdock, wanted Matt to hit the books. You remember that from the Daredevil movie that's even there. He wanted him to become a doctor or a lawyer, hit the books, don't spend all your time doing physical stuff, don't go out for sports, don't do any of that stuff, because I don't want you to become a meathead, and most importantly, I don't want you to become a thug. And so he overcompensates for all that stuff and doesn't let him be athletic. And Matt does the opposite thing, because he is afraid that the kid is going to turn out too much like him, but more importantly, and I think this is actually a lot more of it, now that I'm thinking about it, he doesn't want his son to, and he names his son after his father, which of course is a regular thing to do, but also works really interestingly thematically in this. He's afraid that his son is going to grow up being terrified of everything, and wants to keep pushing him out in the world and make sure that he faces his fears and that he doesn't turn into a wuss and he's not scared of everything. So it's the exact opposite of what his father was afraid of, but he's handling it in exactly the same way. And so, the reason, and I really like that it's not just this superficial, well, I'm overcompensating for what my father did. He's got a really good reason for it, because his son ended up with his, with Matt's kind of heightened senses, but crazy heightened, wow, that wind, crazy heightened, to the point where if you touch him, he bruises, and every sound is like a huge Mack truck to him, and so he's scared of everything, and he gets cured of it in like 6 months, but he's 2 years old when that happens, and the damage is done, and he's from that point on scared of everything, and so all he wants to do is read books. And I really like that, because it makes a lot of sense. He wants to do the opposite of what Matt wanted to do, but what Matt's father made him do. And again, it's not just because it's clever, it's because it makes a lot of sense. If you're cooped up in a room just reading books, you feel like nothing can hurt you. You feel like you have security. And so I really like that. And so so the man without fear has a son that has too much fear, and he's having to figure out how to cope with that. The story is all about what real sight means, what it means to actually have a real understanding and awareness of your world. And the story deals with that by creating this epidemic of blindness, where 75% of the people in New York, I think it is, become blind and have to deal with what Matt used to have to deal with. I really like that. Anyway, I don't want to give anything else away about the story and how it turns out, but I loved it. I was just in love with this idea. And these kind of future stories, I don't mind that they're of a possible future and they're probably never going to actually happen, because the story itself is just really good. And it builds on continuity that was there before, but in its own thing. I really like that. The second story is by Bendis, and it's that same team when Bendis was on the book, so it's Bendis and Maleev, and it's mostly a prose story with Maleev drawing pictures on the sidebars that kind of show you what's actually happening, while the prose is giving you a last will and testament of Matt Murdock's wife. This is also set in the future, and I'm betting that it's supposed to be the same future that the first part is, although you can kind of take that or leave that. It could work that way, or it could not. And it's this really heartfelt love story where Matt as Daredevil and this woman fall in love at first sight, and against all of her friends' warnings, she dates him and marries him, even though this friend of hers pretty much disowns her, because she's worried that it's going to turn out like so many relationships with superheroes do, because there's just too much danger involved. And it's about all of those sorts of things. That story really hit me in a place, and it's kind of sad and tragic at the end. And then the third story is kind of hilarious, but also sort of warm. And it's about Matt, when he's Daredevil, pretending to be, and I guess this must have actually happened. I got the sense that this actually happened, but I haven't read all of that run, so I don't know. But like when he was first outed as Daredevil, one of the ways that he tried to get people to not think he was Daredevil was by pretending like he had a twin brother, and that was actually Daredevil. And and him as a twin brother pretending to be Daredevil is going city, and he's got a radio show, and he's talking in his Daredevil costume, and we get through that other persona how Matt really feels about all the people in his life, and how he sees himself and his own identity, and that was a lot of fun too. So yeah, this is remarkable. This is really fantastic, and I don't know, man. I mean, Daredevil is always really good, but this is the way to do an anniversary issue. You know, it's about our love for this character and what makes him so special, but there's also some really good storytelling in it at the same time, which is what a lot of these end up missing. Next up, What If Age of Ultron #2. I made a big mistake with the last one when, and one of our viewers called me out on this in the comments. I appreciate that. I made the mistake of saying that the last issue didn't take an event and change it like What If usually does. It just kind of gave us this other kind of scenario that had nothing to do with anything. There was a character in that issue that dies, and the whole thing is about what the future looks like after the death of that person. And I missed that, and I don't know why I missed that. At the same time, I still, at first with that, sort of wished that it was like something in Age of Ultron that changed, that made that whole thing happen differently. But it turns out that this series is going in a different direction with it, and that's totally cool. We're getting 5 one-shots. It looks like, this is its own story too, where each of them is about what the future would be like if somebody else died. Now, this doesn't seem to have a lot to do with Ultron himself, but I really enjoyed this. This is another thing that's set in the future, far in the future, and it sees Wolverine having to pull together some old superheroes in order to stop a big horrible threat. And we see all these characters in really creative ways, dealing with where they are in the future, why they don't want to be superheroes anymore, and it's very difficult for Wolverine to convince them to help him out with this problem. And I also, by the way, just like the premise of the whole setup, where like Obadiah Stane has this huge hostile takeover, and the armor wars happen, but without Tony Stark, so the whole thing is way different, and robots are a big problem. That's basically all I'm going to say. And so we get a pacifistic Hulk, which is hilarious. We get a Spider-Man who is a family man now, and his wife doesn't want him to go out and be Spider-Man. He agrees, and he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, of course, and he agrees to do it, but he doesn't have his old costume anymore, so the costume that he puts together is very, like, raggedy and thrown together and hilarious. This is actually a really fun read. I appreciated that, in contrast to the incredibly depressing first one-shot we got for this. So anyway, we've got Spider-Man, Hulk, we've got Ghost Rider, and he's a lot of fun too. I'm not gonna say anything else about this. There is some tragedy at the end of this, which is sad, but again, it's not just a super depressing thing. It's kind of fun that in this sort of, I don't even think it's really a post-apocalyptic kind of future, but it's a not the sort of future you'd want kind of thing. We get to see all these old superheroes come back together, be heroes again, and be reminded of why those sacrifices were necessary. I'm recommending this. This is great, and in retrospect, I'm recommending the first one harder than I did last time, because I gave it somewhat of a lukewarm recommendation. It's actually a really good issue. I was just kind of hung up on What If doesn't feel like what it used to be, which I probably was too hung up on that. Next up, we're gonna jump over to All New X-Men number 25, which is not a tribute issue, but another one of these kind of oversized, big deal, landmark kinds of things. This is a $5 issue. This features a whole bunch of different artists, basically showing us different possible futures for the X-Men, depending on time travel and what could have happened if Beast never interfered with the past. Not a lot of storytelling going on in this book. This is basically a big, long sermon from a character that is obscured at the beginning, put in silhouette, and I was not even remotely surprised by who it was at the end, but I won't give it away. And basically telling Hank McCoy, how dare you do what you did, and Hank McCoy kind of trying to take up for his decision, and but at the same time, he clearly has a lot of remorse about this, and he's just incredibly conflicted about the whole thing. I do like that we are finally focusing more on Hank, on the Beast, because I feel like he has been a little bit too much in the background through this whole thing, and the whole X-Men from the past being brought to the present was his choice in the first place. That happened because of him. So I'm glad that we brought him more to the center in this, and I hope, if nothing else, this is setting up more Beast presence in this. But the point of this is novelty. The fun of this book is getting to see all of these huge X-Men alums and really just major superhero art alums coming back and drawing all these really cool X-Men things. I'm looking for a list. Okay, yeah, so the big one that I latched onto is Bruce Timm, and every time I see Bruce Timm art in a comic book, I always go, oh, somebody's trying to do Batman the Animated Series, and then I see his credit, and I go, wait, no, that's Bruce Timm. I love getting to see that art style with other kinds of characters, especially Marvel characters, because it's sort of surreal. You know, you feel like you're getting to see Marvel characters drawn in a DC style, but they're able to get away with it because Bruce Timm is not owned by DC. His art style is not owned by them, and so you get to see that. But we've got Bruce Timm, Laura Martin, Arthur Adams, Justin Ponser, David Mack, Scotty Young. The list goes on and on and on and on. Lee Bermejo does a page in this. So it's one of those things where it can be this sort of jarring. It can be a whole bunch of different art styles because, first of all, it's not a real thick story. It's mostly all conjecture about what might have happened. And so you're seeing all of these different scenarios interpreted and conceived by all these different artistic talents. I really enjoyed this. It was a fun read. I feel like it would be nice with all new X-Men to kind of get a move on the story a little bit, because I feel like we've been in the status quo for a good long time now, and I'm ready for the pace to start getting picked up a little bit. And so it was a little bit disheartening for me at first reading this and going, oh, we're not actually going to get any story told in this. But it's not about that. This is about the novelty of all these different artists. It's handled well. The writing is good, and the speech is good. So anyway, so all in all, I'm certainly recommending this. And even if you've not been reading all the new X-Men and you are a big collector of particular artists, there's likely to be somebody in there that you're gonna want that issue for. Okay, next up, it's our last crazy, thick, nutso tribute thing, and when I say nutso, I mean nutso. This is The Wedding of Deadpool. This is Deadpool number 27. It is the Deadpool Wedding album. Yeah! This is a $10 issue. This thing is super crazy thick. It is a big magazine, thick, size, style kind of thing, and it is in the progression of the regular Deadpool comic. This is by that team. This is by Brian Posehn and Gary Dugan with art by Mike Hawthorne. And is he drawing? Well, he's not drawing this whole thing. No, of course not. There's a whole lot of different people on this book, but he's drawing the first part of this. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait, Deadpool is getting married? Who's he been dating? Nobody! That's the joke! The joke is this comes out of freaking nowhere. There is this demon lady this monster demon lady that Deadpool falls in love with. First, looks like she's just a big, crazy monster, and then it turns out she actually has a human form. And the big joke is everybody loves her. She's charismatic. She's good at getting along with folks. Everybody really likes her. And so they get married, and wackiness ensues, and then and you know what I like about this is I mean it is goofy, it is silly, it's Deadpool, but airplane. But what I like about this is that it reminds me a lot of early Deadpool stuff. I've read the first few volumes of. Wait, I can see it. I've read the first few volumes of Deadpool, and the more recent stuff, and I guess I've talked about this a lot, the more recent stuff that I've read, besides the Cullen Bunn stuff, seems to be kind of just silly jokey, can't take it seriously at all, and this is not that. This is kind of going back to the earlier days of Deadpool, where there is a certain suspension of disbelief. There is and he has a certain consistent characterization. It still is comedy, and it's dark comedy. And some of this stuff gets really raunchy and really vulgar, especially in some of the backup feature stuff after the main story at the beginning. But Deadpool does think about things, and he does, you know, wonder about the consequences of his actions and that stuff. So so I did appreciate that, and I haven't been reading the Deadpool book. I haven't read any of the Marvel Now stuff at all, and so it was kind of interesting to jump into this, and it has a good sense of Deadpool's history, and there's even a cameo from Blind Owl, and I thought that was really neat. So anyway, after that, there are a whole bunch of different stories about all the times that Deadpool allegedly got married. And most of them are things that never happened and that the book tells you never happened, but that Deadpool is regaling us with as if they happened. And there's a lot of kind of unreliable narrator and kind of questioning of what actually happened and that kind of stuff. What I was impressed with is that all of these different stories are all interconnected by way of a device, which is Deadpool's bachelor party. So he's got all these superheroes together at his crazy bachelor party where things are blowing up and stuff, and he turns to Captain America and he's like, hey, I've been married before. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. And so he talks about all these times that he's been married. And some of the women in the Marvel Universe that he claims to have gotten married to is really funny. But some of those things take place during some of the Deadpool stuff I read, and so I felt kind of at home in some of this. And there's other things that I'm just not familiar with, like the Gail Simone stuff. I've not read that yet, so some of that stuff went over my head. But some of the people writing on this, we've got Mark Waid, we've got Fabian Nicieza, we've got Joe Kelly, Jimmy Palmiotti. Gail Simone writes 2 of these. Actually, Fabian Nicieza writes 1 too, or writes 2 also. But anyway, so you know, a lot of the major Deadpool people, you know, especially Joe Kelly and Gail Simone, coming back and doing some of these stories. A lot of the humor, as is always the case with Deadpool for me, just didn't hit for me, and some of it I just found a little bit too gross and disturbing for my taste, but that's just a taste issue. I imagine Deadpool people are going to really eat this up. For me, a little Deadpool goes a long way, and a huge, like, 100-page, 80-page, whatever this is, volume of Deadpool that might as well be a trade. It was a little too much for one sitting. Deadpool's always really wordy, and that's because there's a lot less story being told than just a lot of gags and jokes being thrown at you, because he just keeps talking. He's like me, he never stops talking. And maybe that's my problem with Deadpool, is that I read too much Deadpool and then I feel like I have too much in common with him. I look at Deadpool and I go, oh man, this reminds me too much of myself. Except Deadpool's wittier than me a lot of the time, and I'm not nearly that disturbing. So anyway, I liked a lot of things about this. I like that it didn't have a bunch of random stories. I mean, it does, but it pulls them all together. The whole thing is about this whole idea of Deadpool getting married, which is a joke that is milked for all it's worth. And again, if you're a big Deadpool fan, I do certainly recommend this. If you're not, you might enjoy it just for art. The cover is hilarious. When you get to the back of this, and I mean, the cover is like everybody you could imagine in the current Marvel Universe, or at least a lot of people, and there's I think at least 200 people here, and when you get to the back, there's this nice chart of a numbered chart of who everybody is, which I thought was really cool. It might be a fun test to go in and see if you can see how many you can recognize, and then go look at that chart and test yourself. I was thinking about doing that myself. But like I said, little Deadpool goes a long way. At the very least, I would recommend maybe, or at least, I don't know, maybe not everybody feels this way. For me, I kind of wish I'd had a couple weeks to get through that and didn't do it all in one sitting, because it took at least an hour to get through that book. Next up, let's go to some independent stuff, starting with, when I say independent, I just mean not Marvel and DC, but I do have here pretty soon a couple of indie, creator-owned things for you. But the first one is Powerpuff Girls from IDW. This is number 8, and this is the end of the silly 2-part story with, well, silly. It's Powerpuff Girls. Of course it's silly. But the story about the new king of the monsters that is a direct sequel to one of my favorite episodes, where all the Powerpuff Girls become different superheroes, and Buttercup is a Spawn-like character named Mage, and they, and anyway, so the monster from that, Steve, I love that they just have normal people names, he's brought all the monsters to the city to throw this huge party, and their big bash is about bashing the whole city up. And it's nothing personal. I love this idea in this issue that, that Steve doesn't plan to completely destroy the city of Townsville, or at least he expects it to get rebuilt, because that's always the joke with Powerpuff Girls, is the next day it's all rebuilt. And so, Steve's whole idea is, let's have this annual party where we go rip apart the city of Townsville all together, because it suddenly occurred to us that we didn't have to just do it one at a time. But then when the party's over, we leave. And so the Powerpuff Girls quit because they just can't face all these monsters at once. It's too much for them. And so they come up with a very clever plot to stop the monsters based on this this new invention that the professor has, and they create a chip that lets them control Mojo's robots, and so they fight all the monsters with Mojo's robots, which is really fun. The ending is really cute. The whole thing, unlike last arc, which I felt like kind of had some actual really cool ideas in it. I mean, this isn't completely devoid of ideas or anything, but it's much more about just all of the silly stuff Powerpuff Girls is always about, and much more of kind of a cute sketch, and that's fine with this kind of material. But the end of this is a really kind of cute ending, with the way all the monsters ultimately react to Steve getting beat. And I really like that. It's not what I thought was coming at all. Once again, these stories keep feeling like they should have been episodes. They're really, really good, and I really recommend that anybody that loves Powerpuff Girls hurry up and get on this. I'm gonna jump over now to Image, and I'm gonna talk about a brand new book called Shudder. This is by Joe Keating with art by Lila Del Duca. Really neat artwork here. Very. And you know, I always hesitate because I'm not an art guy, so I'll say something and I'll think, is that really how it was done? But this looks very colored pencil to me. But maybe it's painted, maybe there's a little bit of chalk stuff, but it looks very colored pencil to me, and it's got a very unique and vivid style that I really enjoyed. This is a very strange book, and I'm looking forward to seeing more to try to get a peg on what exactly this book is doing, because I kind of wanted all of it at once. That's my beef sometimes with these indie series that are, and I'm assuming that this is a mini-series and not a monthly. Maybe it's gonna go longer than I think, but it looks like, honestly, I just don't know right off. I should have looked that up. I don't see it anywhere in the book. But anyway, sometimes you get something like this, and you read the first issue, and you want more of it with you, because from just one issue, it's difficult to get a real good peg on what it's about. And I felt like the storytelling wasn't especially focused, but it's just the first chapter of something, and it certainly does what a first chapter should, which is hook me into the world and get me intrigued, which this absolutely did. This is all about adventure, but the spin is when the world becomes so totally out there and everything you could imagine seems to exist, what is the point of adventuring anymore, and doesn't life become dull? It's sort of like the idea of, if every story gets told, why do we still keep telling stories? And kind of the degeneration of imagination, the or the dulling of it, the end of it. There's just no point left anymore, and I really doubt that that's ultimately the point that the book is going to make, but that is the beginning of this girl's character arc. So we have this girl that was brought to the moon by her father when she was a kid, and then and she didn't really like it. She thought it was super boring, and she had all of this wild imagination about adventuring and exploring, and she wanted to see monsters and crazy animal creatures and all this kind of stuff, and she's just the moon. She thinks it's boring. She thinks that her imagination is larger than that, and then you fast forward a bunch of years, and we see her father is gone now. I think that he's dead, and actually, no, I'm sorry, he is dead. We see a scene with her at a cemetery. What am I talking about? And she misses her father, and she, like I said, feels like there's really nothing left. She's done all this. She did all this adventuring with her father, and the world it doesn't seem to have anything for her anymore. And then at the end, she gets attacked by robots, and it looks like maybe there's going to be more facing death that she has left to do. She feels like, well, she's already faced her mortality. There's nothing can scare her, nothing can surprise her, and then at the end, something surprises her. And so where is all of that going? You know, the more I'm talking about it, the more I like it. I said the storytelling isn't especially focused. The themes are clear. I guess for me it was just more a matter of I was surprised that I didn't get more information about her father and what happened to him. And that so much in the first issue, and that there's so much time in between that opening scene and the later scene, and I don't really have any understanding of what happened to the world. I guess that's the thing, but I'm not supposed to yet, and it's one of those things where I just wish I had more in front of me. I like how cinematic this is. It opens with these credits of artist, writer, and all those things in a very cinematic sort of way, getting their own panels that we're reading in between regular panels, almost as if they're popping up on the screen while we're watching the beginning of a movie, which I really enjoyed. Maybe that was also part of the reason I wish I had more of this in front of me, because I feel like I just started a movie and had to pause it 10 minutes in. So I'm looking forward to more of this. The next book has surprisingly a number of things in common with this one. I didn't mention this, but that book had a little bit of a steampunk edge to it, and this one has much more of that. This is called Clockwork Angels. It's number 1 of a 6-issue miniseries. This is published by Boom Studios, with writing by Kevin J. Anderson and art by Neil Peart. And this is another book with, I think, a really great style all of its own in the art. This really kind of lush but simple, painted kind of feeling. And what we've got here is this world where there's this kind of oppressive dictator that has convinced everyone that his way is the right way, that he's this wonderful leader that can do no wrong, and that nobody has to think for themselves because he does all the thinking for them. And he's called the Watchmaker, and everything in this is about time. So there's this really cool kind of metaphor building, I think, of time, people being kind of a slave to time, and people being a slave to this guy, and he does everything through time. So everything is very orderly, everybody has to do everything at a particular time, and it's all incredibly efficient, but the trade-off is nobody gets to think for themselves. Nobody gets to use their imaginations. Everything, he's got this very Big Brother society, and everybody does everything according to this guy's schedule. And we have a kid in this who seems to buy into all of that, but at the same time also seems to kind of want something more, and you know, has this very vivid imagination and has a thirst for adventure. These two books have a lot of things in common. In fact, when I finished reading this, I found myself having to separate them. And I'm not saying that they're too much like each other, but I was surprised to read, because I mean, like the style and the story are both very different. But I was surprised that that a lot of the same themes kept cropping up. It was weird reading them back to back. So anyway, this is a good start to all of this. It looks like we're going to at the end of this, we get to meet the Watchmaker and see what he's all about. And I'm looking forward to getting more of his backstory and to learn more of why he feels the need to regulate everything the way he does, and why this time efficiency is so important to him. It's an idea that I've seen explored before. The idea of being a slave to time, this trade-off of, you know, efficiency is great, but if you never let anything surprising happen, you never never get off your schedule. You're not really living life to its fullest, that kind of thing. But this does feel like it could be a very unique story dealing with all those same ideas. And anyway, so I'm gonna keep reading it. I'm looking forward to more of that. Time now to jump over to Book of the Week, and my favorite book this week, at the risk of picking a title that I picked too much, is Daredevil number 1.50. You know, when you're just being honest and you're picking the best storytelling that you read that week, sometimes you just can't pick something else just for the sake of variety, and this time I could not help myself. This was really moving. It was challenging, and I don't know. I always feel smarter reading Mark Waid's writing, but then the other two stories were just as good. So, anyway, I couldn't help myself there. And then my favorite cover this week was Deadpool number 27, the crazy wedding thing, because how do I pick anything other than this crazy intricate cover with all of these people lined up in this kind of arena setting to see Deadpool's wedding. And now, let's jump over, as we always do, to Super Enthusiast, find out about some books that Captain Logan didn't read. I know, I read a lot of books, but the comic publishing world is a large and tumultuous place, and there's a lot of other things that I can't always get to. We're going to find out about some things that I didn't find out about. Super Enthusiast, take it away, sir.
Hello, Geekvolutionaries. I am Alex, a superhero enthusiast, once again here with BCLDR, books Captain Logan didn't read. And I had kind of a light week this week, which was sort of nice. Allowed me to get caught up on some back issues and stuff. I was talking to my good friend Steve Baxey recently, and we were trying to rack our brains and figure out other stuff at Marvel that Grant Morrison wrote besides his X-Men run. And we finally did find something that was the Marvel Knights Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4 story that he did. And so I read that this week as well, which is pretty cool, and I would recommend it. But on to the books for this week. My first book is from DC, and that's Adventures of Superman number 50, which is digital first. This is just another little one-and-done story. This one's by Kelly Sue DeConnick, though, so it was a lot of fun. If you're familiar with her writing, she is fantastic. She's doing the Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers series. I just love her work, and I'm actually covering Captain Marvel this week as well, so I'll get into that later. But this one kind of focused on, I guess, the relationship between Superman and Lois Lane, which is, I think, my favorite relationship in all of comics. I've just always found them to be a good couple, because like Superman's idealism balances out Lois Lane's cynicism, and her cynicism balances out his idealism. So I think they make a good couple, because they kind of fill in each other's gaps in a way. But this is all about Valentine's Day, and Lois Lane has gotten Superman a present, and we see at the beginning of this she's having all her fun Lois Lane adventures, doing all her kind of reporting stuff. But she gets Superman a present, and the box is lead-lined, and she gives it to him well before Valentine's Day, and he's just kind of confused. He doesn't know what it is, and he's afraid that it's such a good present that what he gets her is going to be just terrible in comparison. So much of this issue is just Superman talking to the rest of the Super Friends. Basically, Batman shows up, Wonder Woman shows up, Aquaman shows up, and he basically like water skis on dolphins, which is pretty much the coolest thing ever. But he consults them for their opinion on what it might be. All of those characters are written perfectly on point. Wonder Woman is hilarious in this. Yeah, so he goes through and talks to all of his friends, and he doesn't know what it is. And I won't really spoil the ending. This is just kind of a cute little thing that just kind of, you know, hits on the dynamic between these two characters and their relationship, which is really great to see, because in the mainline New 52 right now, they're not a couple. It's Superman and Wonder Woman everywhere. It seems it encroaches on basically every book, except for the main Wonder Woman one, but I think that's just because Brian Azzarello has some clout behind his name at DC. But I highly recommend this story. It's a lot of fun. The art is really, really good too, really beautiful. I would love to see Kelly Sue DeConnick write like a Lois Lane series. That would be just awesome, because Lois Lane is such a great and underrated character in comics. She's this totally tough reporter, and investigative journalism isn't something that we necessarily see as much of as we should in the modern day. So it would be kind of cool to read, I guess, fictional investigative journalism and kind of see that side of the DC universe. But Adventures of Superman number 50, highly recommend it. My other digital first book from DC was Justice League Beyond 2.0 number 17. I know I mentioned the previous 2 times that this book and the Batman Beyond book are doing like a giant kind of a crossover sort of thing. And I mean, maybe giant isn't the right word, because I kind of realized with this, it seems like it's a little bit smaller scale. What I was expecting them to do was kind of, we would have a continuous story from week to week, because that's when these digital books are out, and it would alternate between, we would get Chapter 1 in Batman Beyond and Chapter 2 in Justice League Beyond. But it doesn't seem to really be working that way. I think the way it's going to work is the Batman Beyond book is going to focus on Terry McGinnis and his adventures in the Justice Lords universe, and I guess sort of the main story is going to be in the Justice League book, Justice League Beyond book, and then I'm assuming they're going to kind of cross over at some point. But anyway, this is the event that's happening. It was revealed at the end of the last Justice League story that Wonder Woman showed up, and Superman basically accused her of being Justice Lord, or I guess Justice Lady Wonder Woman, from the Justice League animated series, the evil alternate universe version where Superman killed Lex Luthor when he became president, and the Justice League basically took over and started acting like the Authority. And this one basically has her meeting Bruce, and they sort of just talk, and Superman listens in and talks to Terry and sort of explains everything. So this issue is mostly just kind of exposition and setting everything up for this event. Superman provides the backstory with everything that happened. It turns out after they sent the Justice Lords back, after they depowered them with Lex Luthor's help, on the show, which everybody's familiar with, I'm sure, basically they went back, and Diana was a big supporter of sending them back, and I guess Luthor lied, because the depowering ray was only temporary, and so when the Justice League found that out and returned, they found everything was just destroyed in that world. There's a huge superpower world war, and like half of the Justice Lords, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Martian Manhunter, just said like, this is terrible, and they just like went off into space and said, screw it. And Justice Lords, Superman and Wonder Woman, I guess, got in a relationship, because that has to be everywhere apparently. And long story short, Batman, the Justice Lord's Batman, who, if you remember from the episode, he basically he was converted back to the light side essentially, and he kind of warred against them, and they were able to sort of stop them. But our Wonder Woman went back to that universe since she fell in love with Justice Lord's Batman, since that was something, again, that they hinted at in the Justice League series, was a potential relationship between those two, but I guess our versions of those characters never acted on it. So what they're unsure of right now is this Wonder Woman who has returned actually our Wonder Woman? Is she secretly the Justice Lord's Wonder Woman? Or has, and this is the scarier option, has our Wonder Woman been changed by living in that kind of evil alternate universe? And we maybe see sort of hints of that in this. I won't really show how, but it definitely is in kind of her time spent with Bruce. But I'm really curious about this arc. I loved the Justice Lord story on Justice League. It was always one of my favorites. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. It's a lot of fun. Justice League Beyond 2.0, number 17. I'm going to jump on over to Dark Horse with Star Wars number 16. Now, where this one left off last time was Princess Leia was about to marry this guy from the planet Arochar, because they have resources and things that the rebels want, and that planet wants to basically up its standing in the galaxy and become more of a player. and they think that by joining the Alliance and helping them out, they can achieve that. So it's purely, I guess, a marriage of politics. And Luke has been kind of having a rough time. He's been meditating. He can't contact Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, through the Force and stuff. This, of course, takes place before Empire Strikes Back, but after New Hope. So it's kind of in that in-between episodes kind of a place. And we can see that this is not going to work out, not just because we all saw Empire Strikes Back and know that it doesn't work out, but Luke spends some time with the Arochar people in the mountains doing kind of patrols and stuff, and basically he learns like they don't want to be a part of the wider galaxy. The royals who run this planet do, but the average person doesn't. And there's some interesting stuff that happens in here with the pilots from this world kind of complaining because they have all these old ships that they have to use and they want new fighters. They want some X-Wings. And as someone who had the Star Wars Essential Guide to Vehicles and Vessels as a kid and read through that to the point where my copy of it was just falling apart essentially, all of the ship references that they made were totally on point and totally right. So that was really good to see. But basically, also an Imperial freighter that's just a droid-controlled ship shows up in the system, actually just in orbit. It comes out of hyperspace, and that's basically, that scares everybody. That sends the Rebel fleet. They have to jump off to some rendezvous point to avoid being found, and they're kind of confused because it's just sort of there, and they're able to send it back on its way, but we don't know, was it spying on them? Was it not spying on them? So that's basically what happens in this issue. A lot of it is actually really good character stuff, though, with regards to Princess Leia. She's just fantastic in this. A lot of the royals are kind of peeved that she's down there working with the pilots and trying to repair the X-Wings and stuff. And it shows what kind of a leader she actually is, and that she's not just, you know, the princess character. She's totally capable. So I really like this book, Star Wars number 16. Speaking of Star Wars, though, I'm going to jump on over to Marvel with Captain Marvel number 2. Where the Star Wars comes in is this issue feels a lot like kind of a Han Solo story in a way, in that Carol has this ship which is utterly gorgeous. It feels to me as a sci-fi fan like the aesthetic of sci-fi is somewhat broken. It's this really sort of generic thing and nothing looks cool and iconic anymore. Everything's just this weird mash together of parts. It looks like a kit-bashed model, basically. But the ship is gorgeous that she has, and I totally love it. But Carol's piloting the ship, and she has a cat with her, and she calls the cat Chewie, which I thought was a great reference. And there's all kinds of humorous stuff with the cat in this in the beginning with the Universal Translator, and she's talking to some aliens. And the Universal Translator isn't working, and it's because the cat is basically sitting on the button and like made it locked so she can't use it. And so it's great stuff like that in this. If you remember from last issue, she kind of has been she found this alien woman, and in this issue she's transporting her, and she gets stopped by this sort of alien patrol who have no business being there since it's intergalactic space. It's kind of like international waters, but in space. And they basically get into a fight, and then who shows up? I'm sure you can guess. They've got a movie coming out this summer, The Guardians of the Galaxy. It seems like they're crossing over with everybody now, because they're relatively obscure within the Marvel Universe, and you know, that big movie's coming out, so they want to promote it. We get some kind of cool stuff there with the cat and Rocket Raccoon, who tries to kill the cat. Basically, that causes a fight, and the alien woman that Carol's transporting sort of wakes up from her cryosleep and like runs away at the end. So this is kind of where this one I think is going to go, is Carol tracking this alien woman. We really don't know too much about her, but I'm really loving this whole Captain Marvel in space kind of a thing that's going on. It feels like a really good fit for the character, and yeah, I mean, in a sense, she sort of does feel Carol, personality-wise, is a little bit Han Solo-ish. She's a little bit of a rogue, so it's very appropriate. But Captain Marvel, if you're not reading this book, I highly recommend it. Kelly Sue DeConnick is an amazing writer. Her stuff's hilarious and just loads of fun. I'm really happy, too, that they seem to have a consistent artist on this book, at least for the time being. And the art style is very fitting for this character. Because some of the stuff in DeConnick's earlier Captain Marvel run, the art just seemed to be all over the place. Sometimes we would have just totally random artists filling in, and sometimes the art just didn't really sort of fit. It didn't fit with what the book was. So I'm really happy to see the art in this really fitting, because, you know, these are comics. This is visual storytelling. It's a hugely essential, you know, part of telling the story. So if it works, it really works, and it does here. So Captain Marvel #2, highly recommend it. My other book from Marvel, and also one with great art, is Ghost Rider #2, or I guess all new Ghost Rider #2. Since we have a new character here, it's not Johnny Blaze, it's Robbie Reyes. Now this one picks up after the end of last issue, which essentially ended with him becoming Ghost Rider for the first time, and so much happens in this issue. There's so much. I need to really take this slowly. So the first thing that happens is basically he sort of chases some of the guys that were that killed him at the end of last issue, and they get away, but then it's revealed that the drugs that had been in his car, which resulted in Robbie's death, were sort of created by some type of mad scientist dude who turns into essentially like Mr. Hyde, and like Mr. Hyde from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, kind of Mr. Hyde, where he's sort of like the Hulk. Yeah, so it's kind of weird like that. I like how they're bringing in a bit of the supernatural, sort of a weird kind of horror thing in there, because obviously this is Ghost Rider. But we also see kind of after that, Robbie wakes up in bed, thinking everything that had happened the night before was just a dream, despite the fact that one of his eyes is now a different color. He's, you know, really kind of slowly putting the pieces together. He goes to school, and again we see that he lives in just a terrible neighborhood. They really drive that home. All of the kids in his class aren't even sitting in their desks. They have a substitute teacher who comes in, and he can't really teach the lesson because somebody stole his iPad, which had the lesson on it, from his car in the parking lot, and turns out it was one of the students in the class. And you know, it just kind of shows what a horrible situation he's in again. And basically Robbie becomes Ghost Rider again at the end of this, and he's starting to become aware by the end that, you know, something really has changed. This isn't just a dream that he's having. I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much in saying that, since this is, for a book that has car chases in it, it moves sort of slowly. Like, I would think most issues would have already covered all of this stuff within kind of the first issue, but we're 2 in now. So they're taking their time. It's working. I'm not really complaining about that. The only complaint that I really have in this is just a lot of the lettering in this was very, very tiny, and I had to basically squint to read it. That was kind of odd. Maybe the other thing too is it kind of had Chris Claremont syndrome, in that we are in East LA. There are a lot of Latin American gangsters who have accents. There are a lot of junkies who have weird accents and stuff. Everybody kind of talks different, and so that gets like written into the dialogue. So there's like a junkie character in this who doesn't say with you, he says with you, and that's literally written as with you. And I've always found that kind of a thing just annoying and difficult to read. That's a good half of why I just hate Gambit as a character, is, you know, I can't read his word balloons without just grinding my teeth. So I don't suspect that that's going to change. It's not you know, something that's going to ruin the book for me, but it's kind of a little nitpick and something that I don't personally care for. But that's really my only complaint about this book. This book is still really, really good and a lot of fun, and the art is just gorgeous, and a lovely color palette too. I'm really liking a lot of these Marvel books that have their own distinct voice, and are kind of doing things their own way. Hawkeye seems to be the book that kind of launched that and kind of, you know, letting creators sort of run wild with different characters and do their own thing. And I think that's really paying off in terms of the quality books that Marvel are putting out right now. But Ghost Rider #2, highly recommended. My last book this week isn't technically a book, although I think it has been collected in print. It's a webcomic, and that's Tozo. The first big arc of this was called Tozo the Public Servant, so it often gets referred to as that. They recently kind of began, or I shouldn't say they, I should say he, since it is just a single writer-artist doing this, started the second big arc, which I believe is called Tozo in the Spider Empire. But this is kind of a difficult book to describe. It's in the Lean Claire Belgian European comic style, so it looks like Tintin, essentially. But it's in an alternate world that's not ours. I'm trying to just figure out a way to describe the aesthetic of this. It's sort of Italian Renaissance punk in a way. There is steam power technology and clockwork power technology. They're little automaton robots and stuff that look a little bit retro, but it's not quote-unquote steampunk or clockpunk, since it doesn't have like a Victorian aesthetic. It sort of looks like a slightly futuristic Italian Renaissance sort of a thing, which is really cool and really unique. That was just part of the big selling point in getting me into this. But the story is set in Novo Venetia, which is, I guess sort of literally means like New Venice, but it is in kind of an Italian Renaissance maritime city-state. And basically it's centered around Tozo, who starts off as a public servant. He's basically a police officer. And he gets kind of involved in this sort of a murder mystery, political thriller kind of a story, which is really, really interesting. And that might sound kind of adult, but I would actually be perfectly comfortable recommending this to even, you know, 5 or 6 year old, because again, to draw another comparison with Tintin, it does feel very all ages. There isn't any kind of graphic sex or violence in this. If people die, it's typically, I think it's always off screen. There's not, you know, there's not pornographic scenes or anything in this. It's very, very all ages, and that's great to see. It feels like all ages nowadays just means for kids, and I think, you know, the term should be literal. And those are often the best kinds of stories. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say about this because I don't want to spoil too much of the story. There's a fair amount of it to get caught up on, but again, this is a webcomic, so it maybe just kind of feels like that because you only get like a small strip, you know, a little piece at a time. But it's very, very good. There's all kinds of fun action-adventure stuff. Tozo has a little sidekick robot thing who kind of, I guess, fills in the same role as Snowy in the Tintin books, Tintin's dog. And there are a lot of great viewpoint characters too. We see some stuff from the Doge who rules the city. There's this character Smiles, who's this like hilarious sort of TV radio personality. This book has a great aesthetic. It's loads of fun. It's appropriate for everyone, basically. If you want to see something really, really unique and really, really great, I highly recommend Tozo. You can visit tozocomic.com to check it out for yourself. Really, really good. One of my favorite webcomics. But that does it for me for this week. Again, you know, kind of a light week, which is nice to get a break now and then. But I'll be curious to see what's out next week. I haven't looked at the solicits yet. But that does it for me. I'm Alex, superhero enthusiast, and back to you, Captain Logan.
Thanks everybody as always for watching, and enthusiast, thanks for all of your reviews and insights. I want to say thanks as always also to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping me out with the show. If you are ever in the Kansas City area and you don't go to Elite Comics, what's wrong with you? It's awesome. Go there. Also, if you ever want to send anything for me to review on the Vault, you can send that to my P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. I'm going to do my level best to carve out a little bit of time here and there shortly to start getting back into some vaults if I can. I know I'm not done with Spawn Year, but it's that project is crazy and huge and bigger than all of us, and I'm working on it, and I don't want to not also get some other stuff done. So I know I look crazy and frazzled and like I have all this stuff going on, but I do, and that's the kind of life I lead, and I love it. So I'm gonna see if I can carve out a couple for you here in the next week. I'm gonna do my level best. And also I wanted to mention that if you haven't heard about it already, that Vince and I are making a documentary this year. That's right, we're making a documentary about comic book stores across the Midwest. We're visiting 9 stores in 5 days. Are we crazy? Yes, we are. We're going to be starting here in Kansas City. We're going to go to Nebraska. We're going to go to Iowa. We're going to go to Illinois. We're going to go to St. Louis, Missouri. And we just put together a Kickstarter campaign. It hasn't started yet. I'm waiting for all of the legal stuff to go through, but hopefully in the next few days the Kickstarter will go up, and we will be asking folks to help us out on that project, help us get back our car out of the driveway and get going on this exciting, crazy adventure where we will hopefully be bringing you a really fascinating but fun movie about the comic book industry through the eyes of the people that are making, that are selling comic books, that are in the trenches, who live and breathe it every day and make their living doing it. And Vince and I will be in front of the camera some in that movie as well, showing you, taking you through our crazy adventures across the Midwest where we grew up. So I hope that that at least a few folks can help us out with that project. We've got it partially funded, but we're going to need a little bit of help helping us finish funding it. And I don't think you're going to be disappointed with some of the really cool incentives that we have that we're going to be giving away for folks helping us out. Vince and I are going to be doing personal messages to people on the road. We're going to be sending postcards to people on the road, all kinds of fun stuff. So anyway, I wanted to mention that real quick, and I think that's it. So thanks as always for watching. Sure, appreciate you. I'll see you next week. And remember, folks, just because you're a comic book reader, just because you're a geek and you like that kind of stuff, doesn't mean that you have to conform to old stereotypes. It doesn't mean that you can't get out and enjoy gorgeous weather, and it doesn't mean that you can't be active and work your body out just like your mind. That is my message for this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.